Hi, everybody. Welcome to Great Books, Big Ideas. Time for another reading update. And Happy New Year to all who watch the channel. I looked at the progress that this channel has made in the last year, and it's just incredible. I started basically from zero. I started this channel, I think, going back to maybe 2022. And I just parked it. I just wanted to reserve the name. I wasn't ready to make videos on here yet. I was still formulating a plan for the channel, but it wasn't really till this year or last year, 2024, that I knew I was ready to take that leap into it. And I discovered all the rewards of BookTube and so many of you with great channels. And it's just been a really great, amazing growth year for me and for the channel. And I really like BookTube. It's probably my favorite part of YouTube. And I just, it's when you think about what it means to read books, to be an avid reader, reading is such a solitary activity. It's and I'm fine with that, but it's tough when you want to talk about a book you're reading and the person you're with isn't reading the same book that you are, or your friends aren't avid readers like you are. Sometimes it's really hard. You feel it gets lonely, but I never feel lonely on BookTube. I can always find people who are reading similar things to me and reading new things that I want to try out, and it's just really really been very rewarding. So thank you for those of you who have been sticking with the channel for quite a while now, and welcome to any new viewers. So I wanted to do a reading update. I do these frequently, every week or two or so, and I haven't done anything since the holidays. So I wanted to start with, we'll fold this reading update in with some new acquisitions too. So after Christmas, I got that email from Barnes and Noble. They did this to me last year. We're having a sale, and it was I think it was this year was there was a deal on online things, but there was also an in-store sale for I think it's 1/3 off of all hardcovers in the store. Any hardcover was 1/3 off. So we hopped in the car and got over there pretty soon after Christmas. And I found some cool stuff. Really, really happy with what I found. Let's start with this one. This is called Haiku Illustrated Classic Japanese Short Poems. I am a big, big haiku fan. This is published by a publisher I'm not familiar with. I don't know if they're new, if they're sort of a subsidiary of Barnes and Noble, but it's copyright 2020, so they've been around a little while. Amber Books Limited in London, United Kingdom. So that's, if anyone knows about this publisher, you can talk about it in the comments. And this is just illustrated classic haiku. And what's cool is, they have the original language, and then there are little translations, and just lots and lots of really nice illustrations all throughout. Maybe I'll do a walkthrough of this once I get a chance to spend some more time with it. But it immediately jumped out to me as being something that's kind of just nice shelf appeal, and it looked good. My wife, the lady of the manor, purchased another one of these, same publisher, with this, it's a different kind of binding. It's called a Chinese binding, I think. She got a book of runes for our kid. And then when we were shopping together in the Barnes and Noble, my eye was drawn to this, and I picked it up, and she's like, I was going to get that for you, but I was so afraid to buy you any books. I wasn't sure what you wanted or didn't want. And, maybe you already have things, but she's like, I was gonna get this for you, and I said, okay, great, you have good taste. Like, that was a good call, but I'm totally okay that you didn't get that for Christmas, and let's get it now, 1/3 off, hardcover. So yeah, really happy to get that. I'll do a review of this once I get a chance to read it more in depth. I mean, yeah, just look at that. It's so nice. So nice. All right, next up. I've been thinking about getting this book for years, and it's the Penguin Classics clothbound of Metamorphoses by Ovid. And these covers are designed by Coralie Bickford Smith, right? Look at that spine. And this is the translation by David Rayburn with an introduction by Dennis Feeney. The reason I held back on this wasn't because of the price, but I already have this. I have it in the paperback Penguin Classics edition. And it was just hard for me to justify it, to buy something with a different cover on it. But 1/3 off, I couldn't pass it up. I'm like, was in the kind of giving spirit, giving to myself in this case, but it was like, let's upgrade it. Let's upgrade it. Because this copy is well worn. I've taught Metamorphoses a few times, and I don't know if you can see, but it's really heavily marked up, highlighted. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is this is going to go on the pile of books I used to teach from, which are so marked up that probably anyone else is not going to be so interested in it. And it's like the I don't know what to do with these books pile. I'm still trying to solve that puzzle. But yeah, really happy to get this. Looks great on the shelf. And we collect versions of Ovid, so I've got several different translations, and one of these days I'll sit down and compare them more carefully. So that was really cool. Very cool. This was the real thing I went for, and I made sure the store had it. And it is the Penguin Classics book by Henry Eliot. And I have to thank Denise at Dobby Books for exposing this to me. You had a video on it recently. I'll link to that video in the show description. And there's another YouTuber, booktuber, I can't remember the name of her channel. It has petticoats in the channel name. I will link to her video as well. She did a pretty thorough walkthrough of this. And I love this book so much. This is for fans of Penguin Classics, and it takes you through all the Penguin Classics that go from that cover these periods: the ancient world, the Middle Ages, early modern Europe, the Industrial Age, up through the First World War. And it shows you like lots of cover imagery, so many details about the different editions. Here, by the way, was the first Penguin Classic, Homer's Odyssey, translated by E.V. Ryu. And this book is like crack for me. It's like crack cocaine. I just can't get enough of it. It's going to be by my side a lot within easy arm's reach, so that I can just pour through it, browse it, think about the Penguin Classics that I already have, think about Penguin Classics that I might want to collect, compare the different editions, versions. And like sometimes some of these titles came out more than once, like they might have changed the translator. Yeah, you get all the details in here. It's very well done. What a great reference work, but also so entertaining. So entertaining. I love it. Like, so I'm going to do maybe a more thorough walkthrough of this at some point, or more likely I might just do kind of like dip into it selectively, and there'll be lots of videos. This is a dangerous book for me because it's going to feed my collector's instinct, and I'm going to want to get a lot of Penguin classics because it's like, oh, that sounds like a good one. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I'll find it on eBay or look at the library sales. And I'm going to keep a running list, like a want list now, and this is going to feed the want list. But like, so entertained, love it. I love that I got it on sale too, so I didn't have to spend full price for it. It was totally worth it. Now there's another one that is out there, I think it's by the same editor, Henry Eliot, that takes you through all the Penguin classics that cover the 20th century. And I'll get that definitely eventually. That's going to be a no-brainer for me. I have to get it. Okay. So speaking of that, we were recently, we got together for lunch with my sister and her husband at the inn at St. Peter's Village. St. Peter's Village is this cool little, tiny little quaint village near French Creek State Park in this like kind of hilly region of northern Chester County. And it's French Creek goes in there behind the village, and it's lots of boulders and rapids and things, hiking trails back in there. But it's always been this place where it's like there's like kind of these quaint little shops and little bit of a hippie flavor to some of the shops, and you get your crystals there and your apothecary and candles and all kinds of things. But it's small, it's really small. But there is this large inn, which I think, yeah, it's definitely an inn that you can stay at, but they have a restaurant there. And so a couple of years we got together there with my sister for lunch, and we did it again this year and had a real nice lunch. And on the way back from that, we stopped at a bookstore called Bramble Books. I want to give them a shout out. Really nice used bookstore on Route 23. Kind of like as you head towards Phoenixville and Valley Forge, but not that far. It's right on top of the ridge. The beautiful views on that road, and we got some books. And guess what I got? I got some Penguin classics, of course. Like that was on my mind. So these were editions that I hadn't seen before. One is Turgenev On the Eve, a novel I'm not familiar with at all. This is a Chinese volume 1, the Golden Days, of The Story of the Stone, also known as The Dream of the Red Chamber. This looks really interesting, and I was reading about this in my Penguin Classics book. Yeah, I think there's like 5 volumes of it or something. This goes back to 1760. It was written. So yeah, this will be interesting. And then Catherine Maria Sedgwick, Hope Leslie, or Early Times in the Massachusetts. This is early American literature. I was exposed to this author when I taught an American literature survey class not long ago. And it's set in 17th century New England. Hope Leslie, which was published in 1827, portrays early American life and celebrates the role of women in building the Republic. It's seen as a counterpoint to the novels of James Fenimore Cooper. It challenges the conventional view of Indians, tackles interracial marriage and cross-cultural friendship, and claims for women their rightful place in history. At the center of the novel are 2 friends. Hope Leslie, a spirited thinker in a repressive Puritan society, fights for injustice for the Indians and asserts the independence of women. Magawisha, the passionate daughter of a Pequot chief, braves her father's wrath to save a white man and risks her freedom to reunite Hope with her long-lost sister, captured as a child by the Pequots and now married to Magawisha's brother. So yeah, this looks like a good read. I do like 19th century American literature, and this is going to like broaden my horizons for that. So those were the new things I got. Now, as far as reading updates, yeah, what did I finish recently? I finished The Great Ideas Today, 1970, but I might have already talked about that. That was the last book I finished in 2024. And now I've got my fingers in all different kinds of books as usual. So I'll just give you a reading update on like where I'm at with that. I'll try to go through this quickly. Aristotle, I'm plowing through at a great clip. So I finished this basically, it's like a whole bunch of biological treatises, which I'm gonna count as one book when I log it, but it's really composed of several treatises. So what I have finished is the history of animals, which was the longest one, on the parts of animals, and then on the motion of animals, which was quite short. And I'm currently reading on the gait of animals. And then I have one more to read on the generation of animals, which is slightly longer. And then that'll get me through the biological treatises in this volume. And then I'm going to hop ahead to the Athenian Constitution and rhetoric. And if I keep going at the pace I'm going, I'm reading this every day. I might be through Aristotle by March, like maybe even sooner. And I'm really looking forward to that because Aristotle is like this looming mountain range. And I've been climbing and climbing and climbing. I'm trying to get over to the other side of that range. And I can kind of sense that I'm nearing the top. And it'll be a big relief to get on the other side because then I can move on and read some other philosophy. All right. Also, I'm really getting into The Recognitions now by William Gaddis. This is one that I had parked for, like more than a year probably. But now I'm up to page 176, and it's very much starting to like hold my interest. And we really got introduced to this like major theme in the book of sort of counterfeits and fakery and imitation. And it's really good. Like parts of it are funny. There's a lot of dialogue in it, but Gaddis has a strange way of presenting the dialogue. He doesn't have a lot of quotation marks with he said, she said. It's just dashes, which you see in James Joyce, but this is even like more blended, like inside of paragraphs, like different characters will be talking, and so you have to pay attention to the dashes. That can get a little confusing, but he has a real knack for dialogue. And there are funny moments in this book, and there's like serious themes, and it's just a big doorstop of a novel. And I'm happy to be reading it. Like I would say, if you're thinking about reading The Recognitions, and again, I have so much farther to go here, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to pick it up. It's really not that bad, especially to things like Finnegan's Wake, which I'm reading on my ebook. So as far as the ebook updates, yeah, Finnegan's Wake, I'm maybe like 69% of the way through that. And what else? Praetorita by John Ruskin, which it's very readable, but I just don't seem to be making a ton of progress. I think I'm like 39% through. And Augie March is sort of on hold for a little bit because I'm reading a volume of Xenophon, the Greek writer, a contemporary of Socrates and Plato. I'm reading his thoughts and memories of about Socrates, and I downloaded that off of Project Gutenberg. And then there's the Negative Dialectics by Theodor Adorno, which can only be consumed in very small chunks. So that's kind of what I read at night on the ebook. I'm making some progress with The Cider House Rules by John Irving. Really liking this so far. I think I stayed away from this book because the topic of abortion is very prominent here. And that just wasn't like a theme I was like on its face I was going to be very interested in. Maybe it's just kind of like feels unseemly or something. But the way he's describing things, it's really making me appreciate all the problems that can happen with pregnancies and the need for proper health care for women to make things like abortion safe and accessible. And of course, we've backtracked a lot with that in our contemporary age because of the Supreme Court. But beyond all that, with the themes of abortion, character-driven fiction all the way. And I'm only 60 pages in there through it, so I'm still getting started. But the quality of the writing, it just feels like John Irving is in his prime, I would say. Okay, now what else? Oh, this was parked for the better part of the year, but I, for some reason, turned back to the poems of William Wordsworth, and I'm reading a lot of shorter lyrics by him right now. I'm about like that far through, and this is actually a really nice addition. The type is small, but it's basically everything in here. And it was like the complete poetical works of Wordsworth. And you have notes by Wordsworth. So he has like these little introductions to the poems. And he gives you all kinds of background and so forth. And then there's notes in the back too from the editors. So this is very, very good. Very, very good. And it's nice to come back to Wordsworth. He's a great poet. What else? Redwall is making slow but steady progress in Redwall. I'm up to page 145. So, not even halfway, but really enjoying this story. Great fantasy. And yeah, that's fun. Making slow but steady progress through Borges. There was one short story in here that really, I'm reading the collection called The Aleph right now, but there was one story, and I won't summarize it because it's kind of impossible to summarize, but it's called The Other Death. This is one that I hadn't read before, but it struck me as being like, kind of classic Borges, where you have like these sort of layers of reality and unreality, and by the end of the story, like you're not sure who's who or what's what, but that was really good. And then some more poetry I've been reading is I'm continuing to wade through the poems of Sir Philip Sidney, who was a contemporary of Shakespeare, and this is a very important poet in English history because he introduces a lot of new verse forms. He's absorbed so much of the continental European Renaissance literature, and he's read as Petrarch and the Troubadours and all these other people, and he's kind of like feeding this into British poetry, doing a lot of experimentation with meter and verse form. There's sestinas in here. There's different like epithalamians, like things that like no one else was doing yet really in English poetry. So he's breaking a lot of ground here. And I finished this one sort of big section called Poems from the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia. And I've been reading those, and those are kind of like pastoral poetry, clearly based on a lot of like classical pastoral poetry and so forth. And the language is old, it's a little tough to get through, and some poems mean more to me than others. And I was relying a lot on the copious notes in the back. And then I started to notice that like there's sort of a storyline here. And I don't know anything about this book, or I didn't. And what I realized was The Old Arcadia is a book that I think is mostly prose, and then it's got all these poems embedded in it. And what they did for this was they just pulled the poems out. So it's a little difficult because like I'm not really following like all these shepherds and these characters and so forth, and who they're, the love triangles and quadrangles and all the rest. So it's kind of like wasn't making a whole lot of sense to me, but it got me somewhat interested in maybe reading the actual book, The Old Arcadia, which has a very complicated manuscript history and different editions. And, you know, there's like charts and in here, like trying to make sense of it. But it is available. Like, I think there's a Penguin Classics edition. There's also Oxford World Classics, which is maybe the one I'm going to keep my eye out for. But I don't know if it's like a high priority for me to read it, but it might be interesting to actually like read the story that kind of goes along with these poems. But long story short, I got through that. And then now I'm reading a batch of what they're just called like certain sonnets. They're not all like 14-line sonnets. But that is... that's going well, making a little more sense to me than the Old Arcadia poems. But I really want to read this volume to get to this, which is Astrophel and Stella, which is a sonnet sequence that I was exposed to as an undergraduate in college in my freshman year. And I thought, I like these poems. And I want to read more of them. And all these many years later, I'm finally going to get around to reading the entire sonnet sequence. And to me, this is like the featured attraction in this collection. And then there's a bunch of other stuff at the end, and a lot of notes. It's a really great scholarly edition. It's published by Oxford. But yeah, so I'm just making like slow progress through that, but it's fun. It's fun to like change gears and move from prose to poetry. I also finally got back to reading Joyce Carol Oates, You Must Remember This, and we've hit some major plot points. This love affair between Enid, I think her name is, the protagonist, and her sort of half-uncle, that has already kind of begun, and it's quite turbulent and disturbing. And Enid has now attempted suicide, so I was just reading the chapters about that. But what my overall impression, a very finely written book, and I really want to make better progress through it. Sort of only this far through, but every time I pick this book up, I can see what she's writing about. Like, it's so vivid, like this early 1950s upstate New York, kind of working class town, like the lakes up there and everything. And it's like watching a movie. Like, it's like she's like painting with words, and it's just so rich. The tapestry's so rich that it takes me to this place. I mean, this is before my time, but I really feel like I'm there. And it's very masterfully done that way. Okay. I guess I saved the best for last, maybe, is I committed to reading all of Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time, this year. This is a reread, and I'm going to read these brand new translations. I think I'm going to devote a playlist or kind of like individual videos to log my progress through these books. So I won't say a ton about this right now, but this is the Lydia Davis translation. So these Penguin, what do they call these? Deluxe classics or something like that. But anyway, they're each volume, the 7 volumes in the novel, published by written by different translators. The first is by Lydia Davis, and I just read the first 48 pages this week. Started on January 1. If I read 10 to 20 pages a day, I think I'll have no problem getting through the whole darn thing again. But I have to say, I'm loving this. I'm loving this translation. So as great as the C.K. Scott Moncrief, and as classic as that is, And I have that, and I will reread it someday. This just feels more accessible, more direct, a little less ornate in a good way. And I'm seeing like the humor that I didn't see before. I'm seeing more pathos than I felt before. And of course, the first 48 pages are like an overture to the whole thing. So we got to the scene of eating the Madeleine cookie and dipping it in the tea and all that. And it's just amazing. I just love this book. I love this author, and I'm really loving this translation so far, and more than I expected to. I thought I might like it, but I really liking it. So, but I'll save more comments for another day on that. So I'm like thrilled to get back into Proust. Yeah, I'm just sinking my teeth into that. It's just a luscious book. Love it. I love it. Also going to be reading Plato's Crito, because I'm currently doing a series of videos about Plato's Apology, which is the first reading in the Great Books of the Western World 10-year plan. Those episodes are, there's 2 of them out now, and I'm going to be adding to them. There's probably 2 or 3 more parts to go, doing a real deep dive into that work by Plato, the Apology of Socrates at his trial. And Crito is the much shorter dialogue, which is, in some ways, I like Crito even better than Apology, which is about when Socrates, he's been convicted and he's been condemned to die drinking the hemlock. He's sort of waiting for that to go down, and he's in prison, and his friends come and visit him, and they talk about different things like, should you escape? Like, because you've been railroaded here, this is unjust. And, you know, he gives his rationale for why he thinks that's a bad idea, why he's going to accept his fate. So I need to do a reread of that and take some notes so I can prepare the next installment of those 10-year reading plan videos. All right, that took a while. I'm sorry to try your patience, but the stack of books here is, I couldn't lift it. What I just showed you, it's about 2 feet tall. But I'm just loving my reading life right now. Let me know what you've been up to. Have you finished any books? Are you reading? What are you currently reading? If you have reactions to any of these books, it's always fun to keep the conversation going. And I hope you check out my videos on Plato's Apology. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.